Hello, everyone, and welcome to Paying for College session. I'm one of the moderators for this program. Frank?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Yes, good morning, everybody. Do we have, just to confirm, do we have our presentation live and open right now?
Yes, the students are here.
Okay. No, I mean the PowerPoints. I don't see it on my screen.
Got it. I will
Okay.
start sharing that now.
Okay, perfect. Marjorie, thank you so much for that. So we want to welcome you all today to what we hope to be a really wonderful conversation about cost and financial aid as it relates to the college process. My name is Frank Cabrera. I'm the Director of College Counseling at Brooklyn Friends School. I want to give all of our presenters the opportunity to present themselves and their institutions, but we all want to also begin by just sharing a little bit about ourselves and why we do the work that we do. I'm a first generation college graduate, so this work for me is inherently really, really personal. Not only was I the first in my family to go to college, but I was also a student who needed a ton of financial aid. We couldn't afford really much of anything. So not only was admissions really personal, but financial aid was really kind of a central element of my journey and my story through college. So I'm here today because I'm really excited about the importance of this conversation. As scary as it may be, we hope to kind of break that down a little bit for you all so that you can go into this process with a lot of knowledge and a lot of comfort as you begin searching for new opportunities. So Margie, why don't I hand it over to you next?
Sure. Once again, my name is Marjorie Ireland. I work at Westtown School. I'm one of the associate directors of undergraduate admissions. And my journey to the college started as I'm a first generation American. My parents did go to college, but they went to college in other countries. My family's originally from Haiti. So my mom went to school in Canada. My father stayed in Haiti. And so going through the process was very confusing, but I was able to ask a lot of questions. And I think the one giveaway or takeaway is the ability to ask questions and advocate for yourself, especially when you may not have family members who may not understand the process. And so being able to speak up for myself was really important because just like Frank, paying for college definitely was something to think about, and how was I going to do that? Because my family, while they were generous at heart, regretfully was not generous in being wealthy, and so that was part of the process that I had to think about how I was going to pay for college, and my way was doing as best as I could academically in order to get a scholarship. I'm going to turn it over to Priscilla as we go deeper in the conversation. We'll share more of our stories.
Good morning and welcome. My name is Priscilla Alicea. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Undergraduate Admission at Georgian Court University, which is located in New Jersey. We are a small Catholic institution of about 1,700 students. And financial aid is also a very personal story for me because as a first gen student as well, I had to figure out and help my parents figure out how we were going to pay for college. And so I try to educate students as much as I can about the process to make sure that they are taking the most advantage of their situation at whatever institution they are attending. So I'll turn it over to Jared.
Thank you so much, Priscilla, and good morning, everyone. Jared Rivers here, Senior Associate Dean and Director of Access out of the Bates College Admission Office. I've been doing admissions work for the past 20 years, and in that time, I've worked for 4 institutions. I, too, was a first-generation college student. I am a male of color, I'm both Black and white, and I transferred twice, and so I didn't really get it right the first time and didn't get it right the second time. But through all of the college experiences I had, it really did lead me to this field. And it is my purposeful work. It's really incredibly important work. It has a tremendous amount of meaning that I can come in and be a part of a program and be a part of this huge decision that you guys are about to make brings a lot of purpose and meaning to my life. So Thank you so much for being here, and it's a pleasure to be here with you. I'll pass it over to Anna.
Thanks, Jared. So I'm Anna Young, Associate Director of Admission at Wellesley College in Massachusetts, and we're an all-women's college. And I think my story to admissions is kind of twofold. My mother was a coal miner's daughter. I grew up in rural Pennsylvania, and there were 11 children. She didn't have indoor running water or indoor plumbing, or they had a cook stove that heated the whole house. And when her father died, when she was in 8th grade, she dropped out of school, as did all but one child, and went to work because that's what she had to do. And then she worked to put my father through college. And so every time I'm able to help a young woman find her way to a college that fits her, and it doesn't have to be Wellesley, I want to help students get the right fit, and help them understand financial aid better. It's so important to me. I think the other side of that is I had 3 siblings, and 3 of us were going to be in college at the same time, and I went for an ROTC scholarship. And so I went to a college that was 30-to-1 men to women, a science and engineering school, and then I went into the military, went through the first boot camp women ever went through with men, and at a time when they didn't want women in the military. So coming to a place like Wellesley, and where every woman is considered important and smart and has tremendous potential, and to be able to offer financial aid and support for students, it just means the world to me to be able to do that.
The title of the program and description is "There's a Cost to Attending College. Let's talk about it." And the key part of that is knowledge is power. And regardless if you're in middle school or in 9th grade or 10th, 11th, or 12th grade, the importance of doing research and trying to gather information for college, it's really important. So within the title, it's very important to realize that your goal is to go to college and to go through college and graduate. And one of the doors that you have to go through is the financial aid office and figuring out how to pay for college.
So jumping right into things, so what is financial aid? We talk and discuss it. So broadly speaking, it's any form of funding that helps you pay for college, including scholarships, grants, loans, or any kind of work study programs. When we think about financial aid, it can be really scary, as I think we all shared parts of our story, thinking about the ways in which we're looking at and assessing our family's financial health and the ways in which we can potentially plan for and be able to afford college. And what financial aid offices and forms and programs are trying to help you all collectively do is make college or careers affordable. So I always tell my students that as you begin the college process in earnest, and as you're engaging with colleges, certainly the people that are going to feel the most comfortable to do so would be your admissions officer, because you'll likely have the most forward-facing relationship with them. But take it from me, some of your best friends in college are going to be and should be your financial aid officers as well. Even though there are a lot of forms to fill out and it's going to feel more mechanical than it is human, there are people behind the screen evaluating and trying to understand your family's financial health and their stories, and the people who can best position you to really kind of get the most of the resources available at any particular college will be financial aid officers. So certainly, throughout this presentation, we're going to give you some good broad information about what financial aid is and points of consideration as you begin the process. But I also am going to encourage you that if you ever have any questions, there's something specific about financial aid at the schools that you're looking into, make sure that you feel comfortable and confident reaching out to financial aid officers. So when we think about costs at a college, I think any of us can look at any sticker price, as we like to call it in the profession, and see how almost astronomically expensive a college can be, right? Schools can be from $20,000 to $75,000 a year. And I know when I looked at colleges when I was applying, that was such a really scary thing to digest, right? But what's important to not kind of get shocked at is that indeed sticker price. Sometimes these really expensive schools are actually going to be the ones who can be the most affordable given their own respective resources at these institutions. So when you're looking at the aid availabilities at these schools, what you want to pay particular attention to are going to be the net price at these particular institutions, which is what you'll end up affording, or rather what you'll end up paying after the institution grants you any loans, any scholarships, whether it's based on need, which means your family's ability to pay, or if it's merit scholarships, if you're getting some money based on academic talent, artistic or athletic talent. When you get your financial aid packages, though, it's really important to understand exactly how it is that these financial aid offices are billing you. Some schools are going to give you a total cost, so you'll see every single breakdown, but other of them may show you a billable cost versus indirect costs. So the billable costs are going to be tuitions and fees and on-campus room and board. So your ability to live on campus and eat on campus. And this is going to be what your actual bill is. This is what you and your family are going to be expected to pay towards the cost of the education. But that isn't the only piece to consider. There are also indirect costs that are associated with college. So things like books and supplies, whether you're going to be living off campus, whether you have personal expenses, travel costs, right? So if you're living somewhere, you're going to college somewhere that's far away from home and you have to take a flight there, these aren't things that colleges are going to bill you for, but they may show up in your financial aid package as an estimate cost that you may need to anticipate. So as you're looking and reviewing financial aid packages, know that those indirect costs, while they're not going to be elements that the school will bill you for, there will be parts of your planning that you have to be aware of, right? Because this is everything else that helps you live, right? And be kind of a functional person in college. So when you're looking at not only the bill, you also need to think about all the other associated costs that you may run into as you're in college.
Okay, so many new terms. It's like a unique language you have to learn to do financial aid. And I'm going to talk a little bit about calculators. So where do we begin? It's important to note that every college uses their own financial factors and school funding philosophy to determine a family's calculated need. They call that institutional methodology, but in other words, we all calculate the family's need a little bit differently. We don't all do it the same way. So every college and university is required to have some form of a calculator on their website for students and families. And these calculators can be incredibly helpful tools for a family to get an estimate of how much college will cost them. And you should complete a calculator for every school you plan to apply to. I'm going to say that one more time. Every school you plan to apply to. All right. These calculators are designed to measure the financial strength of your family, and it provides you with an estimate of the amount of grant aid and other aid, that's free money, all right, grant aid, available to you through a college. The net price provided by the calculator is an estimate, a starting point for seeing how a college's current financial aid policy applies to you and your family. So the first tool I want to talk about is the net price calculator. And it's found on every college and university's website, and it's required by the Department of Education that we provide that. It's sponsored by the College Board, and this tool will also provide you with an early indication of how much and what types of financial aid you might expect to receive as a first-year student at college, as well as what your family might need to contribute. So to complete the net price calculator, you can type in any search engine with the university's name or college's name with the word net price calculator, and it will come up. Or you can log into the College Board and you can create an account, and then you can save your information and go back to it, which is sometimes helpful if you have to look for forms. It can take somewhere between 20 and 40 minutes, depending on whether you have those forms right at hand. So that would be tax forms, W-2 forms, any of the information you might need to fill out the calculators. The other tool that you might use is a college-specific calculator like My Intuition, and this is called a quick cost estimator. And my college, Wellesley, uses that. It was created by Phil Levine, a professor of economics at Wellesley, and he thought it would be easier for families if they could get a quick estimate. So he worked with our financial aid office and got all the factors that were important to us and created this calculator called My Intuition. And there are now 40 plus colleges and universities who are using this estimator. And if you go to myintuition.org, you'll see a little calculator symbol and you can find out which colleges are using it. This tool, it helps you anticipate your college costs and your eligibility for need-based scholarships. It takes 3 to 5 minutes to complete. It asks about 6 basic financial aid questions that gives you an estimate of the amount your family will need to contribute for 1 year. And the good news is it's secure. You don't have to worry about the information being saved. You go in, you do the form, and then it's gone. So it's completely safe for a family to use. It's important to note that for both of these tools, all right, it may not be enough. And sometimes there are extenuating family situations or financial situations, or maybe there's a term, you just don't know what that term means, or a form you can't find anywhere else. So please reach out. As Frank said, we do this work because we like people and we really want to help you. An example we had last year was a student filled out 2 different financial forms and doubled her family's income for the year. And we didn't think it was right. So we reached out and asked for more information from the student. And it turned out we would have calculated incorrectly. So it's important to have that kind of relationship and to reach out at any time. So the next thing we want to talk about are the forms that we would use. Yes.
A student, Priscilla, wants to respond to a question that's in the chat.
Okay.
Priscilla?
What do we mean by College Board? Net price calculator. The College Board is the institution that owns the net price calculator. So it's part of the College Board suite, just like they offer the SAT. They also have the net price calculator available for colleges and universities to use.
And they have over, as it says, 400 schools using that net price calculator. So remember that in completing these calculators, it's not your application for admission or financial aid, and the test results are only as reliable as the information that you provide. So the next thing are the forms. So the first group of forms are what I would call the general forms. Those are the forms that the FAFSA, the free financial aid for federal student aid. This form is for US citizens and permanent residents and is required by all US schools. It becomes available on October 1st, and it can be found on the federal student aid website, which is studentaid.gov. You can see the email, right, or the web link on the screen. And this is a form that everyone uses, and it's important because it gives the information so that students can receive special funding like the Pell Grants, all right, so free money. So I would encourage everyone to go on and take a look at it. It's available. You don't just open it and try and fill it out. Take a look first, see what the questions might be. The next form is the CSS profile, and this is required by many private colleges, and it also becomes available on October 1st every year. And with this form, you enter the college codes of the schools that you want to apply to. Like we have codes just like your high school has what they call a CEEB, a CEEB code, right? And you put those in. And the great thing about this form is it pulls all the questions that the 6 to 10 colleges you're interested in have about financial aid and puts it in one form. So instead of doing 6 to 10 forms, you're only doing it once. This also, you can type in the profile on the College Board website, all right, and you will be able to get a link. Now, it is $25 for the initial and $15 for additional reports, but new this year for families, for domestic undergraduate students whose income is under and up to $100,000, it is free. And that's big news. So it's about access and making that available to students wherever they might be. So we're going really quickly through these forms. You also may be asked to fill out an international student form called the ISFAAA, and that's independent individual to each institution, and they'll let you know whether that you need to fill that form out or not. So you can see the College Board's website there. There is a profile online, and they also have a guidebook so that tells you how to follow all of the steps to fill out the CSS profile. So I'm going to turn this over now to Jared, who's going to talk about scholarships and grants.
Thank you so much, Anna. Yes, and so scholarships and grants. The good news that I have to share is that there are literally thousands and thousands of scholarships that exist out there. And I totally understand that there are lots of different terms being thrown at you really quickly, but sort of buried in that word scholarships is also grants. And grants and scholarships can also fall under that umbrella of just financial aid. I think in a lot of cases, certainly if you're anything like me, you come up and you hear a lot about like athletic scholarships, in many cases full 4-year athletic scholarships. But in many cases, there are obviously some that are related to academics. There are some that are related to leadership and other skills, like music and talents that you have. And so there's lots and lots that are available. Some of these scholarships and grants and financial aid are based on your specific need, which really is sort of comes from a lot of the forms that you will fill out that Anna just mentioned. But then others are based on merit, okay? It's really critical that you ask that question with the institutions that you are looking at, maybe through an information session, or, in many cases, you can just contact the financial aid office at that institution to ask if, about their financial aid policies. Do they offer merit-based aid, or do they offer need-based aid? In many cases, it's one or the other. You will see here that these are some examples of merit-based scholarships. I'm less familiar with the particulars, but this would be an example. If you were looking at Penn State, you would want to ask them if they offer merit-based scholarships, and clearly you can see that they do here in this example. And this one is based on students with diverse perspectives and identities, okay? And then, as you can see in the lower example with Mount Holyoke College, there are some that are more or less related to academic excellence and community service. So again, lots and lots of examples. Of course, I work with the Bates Admission Office, and we just rolled out a $100 million expansion of financial aid over the next 10 years. And that's really something that started from a philanthropic endeavor from the Schuler Foundation out in Illinois. Bates is not alone in this, though. There are many other colleges around the country that also received or are also doing a financial aid expansion through this Schuler initiative that is really for students from the lowest income brackets across the country, for Pell Grant recipients, okay? And so that is a fantastic example of just a need-based financial aid, or a need-based scholarship, if you will. On the next slide, you will see that there are several examples of national scholarships. Again, some may be based on your identity, the Hispanic Scholarship Fund. But others may be related to your academic excellence again, and talents and service and leadership. And that's ultimately what you'll find with the Gates Scholarship, as well as Jack Kent Cooke. But again, just to put a wrap on it, there's lots of free money out there, folks. I know that a lot of these selective institutions have really high price tags, but if you do your homework, and if you talk to the right people on these campuses, in many cases, they can meet 100% of financial need, and they can really bring down the cost. In many cases, you may end up owing less than $15,000, after receiving an education that could be valued as high as $300,000 after 4 years. So really, really important information here. And I hope that you found it valuable. I'm going to pass to Marjorie.
Yes, I just wanted to say before Priscilla comes on that many of the scholarships for students will be found at the college or university if they offer merit scholarship, but also through the grant program, which is the institutional money that they give out based on financial need. So understanding the universities that offer merit, which Jared did a great job describing the different forms of merit besides academics. It could be special talent, but your first place of looking would be at the college and university that you are considering. And so it's never too late, or it's never too early, excuse me, to start looking at this information. So if you're a 9th or 10th grader, or even a junior, you really should be, looking through the different colleges, and not because you're planning to apply to those schools, but more along the line of getting an understanding of what qualities or what criteria they might be thinking about in their process. So doing research, it's always a good idea, but not to add stress of saying, this is where I'm going to apply, but more in the line of understanding of what schools might be looking at when they are offering scholarships. The transcript, your classes will always be the #1 part of a review process. So also trying to do as best as you can academically, and staying on top of asking questions and engaging in the classroom. Priscilla?
Thank you, Marjorie. So I guess I have to talk about the forbidden word that a lot of people don't want to talk about, and that is loans. And we need to be honest, it's a reality. I'm sure all of the presenters on this call had some type of loan in their undergraduate or graduate trajectory. The most important thing about loans is just making sure that you don't borrow more than what you need. So you have to be really cautious. Financial aid offices will automatically add loans to your financial aid award if you qualify for them. So you just have to make sure that you understand what you're borrowing. There's different types of loans out there. The direct subsidized or unsubsidized, which just means that either you're paying the interest rate now or you're going to pay it later. Some institutions may also have what's called a Perkins loan, which is directly tied to that particular institution. And then we also have a Parent Plus loan, which is specifically for parents to take out to help with the cost of education. And again, the key is making sure that you don't borrow more than what you need. We've thrown a lot of terms out at you, and there is just no way possible that in this 45-minute presentation, we can go through all of them. So again, we encourage you to visit the FAFSA website. They do have a glossary of terms so that you can become familiar with them as you go through this process. The other aspect of a financial aid award could include work study. And work study, what people need to realize is that you have to pay for that upfront, and then you work during your time in school to earn monies to either help subsidize with incidentals, everyday living. Some students, depending on how disciplined they are, may sign over their work study check to the institution to help pay for the award, but it's available due to the student's need. Usually students can work 10 to 15 hours per week. The pay does directly go to the student. And then the students are generally paid at or above minimum wage. It depends on oftentimes, where do you work on campus? Do you work in the library? Do you work in the gym? Do you work directly with a faculty member? So there's many different types of on-campus jobs that may be available. And usually the Office of Financial Aid will have a listing, and then you can go in and apply. Oftentimes you can coincide your job with your work schedule. So if you have all morning classes, maybe you can work in the afternoon or vice versa.
Priscilla, one thing I will add that for the last two slides, the subsidized loan, unsubsidized loan work study, that's based on information that's on the FAFSA form.
Correct.
So if you're wondering where does work study come from, and the work study is done at the college or university you're attending, and usually they have a list, as Priscilla was mentioning, that for working from the library all the way to the admissions office. If you went to the keynote panel, you'll have heard that some of the panelists worked in the financial aid office or in the admissions office as tour guides or as work study aides. And it's a really great opportunity to build your resume in college, but also it's learning to balance, as you probably are already doing now in high school, or developing those skills, being able to hold a job where people are depending on you to come in, but also being able to go to class and do your work. Some students would decide that, first semester they may not work, so you don't have to take work study. You can say, I'll work second semester and try to get a job at that time. But it's just one more way of being able to get money in your pockets and being able to pay for, the incidentals, or as Priscilla said, turn it over to the college as part of paying your direct cost bill. But work study is optional if you receive it as part of your financial aid package, which comes from what information is filled out on FAFSA.
And the same thing with the loans, right? Some of them are optional depending on your situation. We do have a question related to 529 accounts and financial eligibility. My experience, and I'll ask my colleagues to chime in, is that 529 accounts really depend on A, the state that you're in, B, the institution. And I believe they do come into play when an institution asks you for a CSS profile. So I'm not sure if my colleagues want to chime in reference to a response.
No, I think Priscilla, you did a really good job. And this is like a perfect example of when we talked about this session, because the 529 is very specific. And that is a fair question. When we talk to students about questions to ask the admissions office and financial aid office, you'll be surprised that each institution may have a different response of how that is calculated within their institutional methodology. So that specific type of question of how do you handle 529s when students are filling out the financial aid form, it's really a fair question. And this is not a question that you ask senior year. This is a question that, especially as juniors or even sophomores, that you may be able to go on the college's website and see the response that they may have. They usually have a section that's called frequently asked questions, and then you'll be able to see how they handle outside scholarships, how they handle 529 information. And so I would really encourage you to go to the college's website and see how they handle that information. Because each school, as Priscilla mentioned, not all schools, for example, are part of the CSS profile, which is one of the forms that especially some colleges will ask you to fill out in addition to the FAFSA application. And a lot of these examples we're giving you are for domestic students. And so it's just very important to understand that each school will handle it differently. We are providing some articles as well for students to look at, and blogs. That's another place for research, being able to look at reputable organizations and to gather information in regards to financial aid and information in regards to the best way to fill out forms and ask questions. So this is one of the sites. The FAFSA, many states will have FAFSA completion dates. And so for Pennsylvania, for example, there are several FAFSA completion virtual programs. So if you're a senior and you are still filling out the FAFSA, you could go to these virtual programs and they will ask you and walk you through how best to complete the FAFSA, and you'll also be able to ask questions. Each state usually has a FAFSA completion event, and if you type in FAFSA completion and then the name of your state, you will be able to it'll populate and give you that information. The second one is New Jersey. So that's just an example. So know that if you don't have help within your high school, there are agencies like your state agency that provide you with virtual and in-person programs. There's also organizations like the College Board that will also provide information in regards to financial aid besides doing research for colleges.
Thank you, Marjorie. And before we wrap it up, we want to just truly thank you for attending and for just allowing us the opportunity to share this important information with you. We'd like to remind you that you can reach out to the financial aid office at any point. You do not have to submit an admission application in order to talk to financial aid representatives. Financial aid representatives welcome questions at any time. So as you continue to go through this process, as you continue to learn more about the schools that you may be interested in, I would say that the financial aid process goes hand in hand with the admission process. Also, I just want to make you aware that there are some institutions that may be need blind versus need aware. And this is an admission process. So need blind means that the admission office, you can apply regardless of your financial aid background. They do not consider your financial situation when deciding your admissions decision. However, there are some students that are need aware or need sensitive. And this policy just means that they make the majority of their decisions on a need blind basis, but they may also make some decisions on a need aware or need sensitive basis, which means that they are looking for students who are able to meet the college's full cost. And so that is certainly a question that you want to ask the different colleges and universities that you may be applying to, whether they're need blind, need aware, or need sensitive. As we also move into a digital age, I would also add that it's very important for you, once you have been admitted or once you have applied, even at the application stage, most colleges and universities will have a student portal. And so you need to make sure that you check your student portals. Oftentimes, a lot of important information is right on this portal. Whether it's that you're missing financial aid documents, whether you need to accept or decline your financial aid award or your loans. Again, colleges and universities prefer to do things electronically because it is a quicker way. So please make sure that you check your student portal as early as the application process, but definitely once you decide to enroll at a particular college or university, that portal is going to be your best friend, because you'll also be able to find information on housing, information on your academics, when to register for classes, so on and so forth. So at this time, we'll open it up for questions if there are any that we can answer for you, or maybe expand on any of the topics that we've spoken about earlier.
Priscilla, could I add to your portal note? So the student portal is password protected. So the email goes to the student and they have an account, but the parents can't see it. And sometimes students think that their parents are doing the forms and the parents don't know that a certain form isn't in, but the student can see it on our portal. For example, on ours, you see your admission checklist and then you see your financial aid checklist. So I always recommend to students, take a picture once a week, a screenshot of your financial aid checklist, and give it to your folks, because they may not be aware that something's missing and you think they're doing it, and they can't log into your portal, only you can. So it's kind of a way of keeping your parents or your guardian in touch with what's going on in financial aid. And it makes a better team for your family if everybody knows what's happening.
I also want
that is Sorry, that is really critical information, because in some cases it can play into the final decision that we land on. If we've been sending you emails letting you know that you're incomplete for financial aid and you are not submitting those documents, we might start to think to ourselves, well, maybe they've already found another home, and it might land with a deny or a waitlist decision, something like that. So really, really critical information. Pay attention to that, and it will definitely help in the process.
And don't be afraid if you see an extra form, like it says there's a workshop or they need a W-2. Students get intimidated and they worry, they think, I'm not going to get financial aid. They're asking me for more information. And in actuality, we're trying to get you the best package possible. And we just need this little bit of information, or we need to clarify that, no, that's not your income. It's way under that. And we would have, miscalculated for a student. We'll even reach out to you if we find that you've made an error in your favor. So be sure to check that checklist.
There is a question on the Q&A, and I hope I'm pronouncing the person's name correctly, Arundel. Is it better to go to what would be considered a prestigious school and accumulate a lot of student loans, or go to a school that is not a prestigious school but have most of it covered? Throwing out to, I'll start with Jared.
Most prestigious schools are in a fortunate position to have lots and lots of financial aid. And so, I don't know exactly who asked the question, but generally speaking, I would say that what I just shared is true. Now, I don't know that I can answer the question for you individually. A lot of that may rest with you. You need to do what's best for yourself. But this is a tremendous investment in yourself, one that you can build upon over the course of a lifetime, in terms of earning, a master's degree as you go into a graduate and professional school and so on and so forth. And so just take that into consideration.
I'm going to wear my college counseling hat, and I'm going to stress to students that being able to, if you are an undergraduate and you have accumulated a lot of debt, that would be very concerning as a college counselor. It's really important that you understand that college, your bachelor's may not be the only degree that you will receive. You may go on to master's, you may want to go on to law school, you may want to get an MBA, whatever it may be. So when you are devising your college list, it's really important to understand that you are looking at the financial fit. And we threw out a lot of terms from the net price calculator to my intuition. Many of those devices are products that you can use before you are seniors. And I encourage students and their families to go on those calculators and plug in the information and print out the results. And as you are looking at the colleges that you want to apply to, make an appointment with the financial aid office and really have a conversation in regards to your individual case, because you do not want to leave college with a mortgage plus type of indebtedness. Ask that question to the colleges. What is the average indebtedness of your students? And what do I mean by indebtedness? In 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, asking the graduation rate, how long does it take for, the average student to graduate? And that really depends, but understanding how much money do they owe at the end of graduating from that college. That's a very important part of the process, and being able to figure out, okay, I borrowed this money with my first job. How am I going to be able to sustain myself as an adult and paying my bills and also paying the loans? My presentation is not to discourage you from loans. My presentation is to look at that and really have a conversation of how much indebtedness is really a reasonable amount. And I really, really encourage my students to think about that and, and really think about how much money they're going to borrow. Frank, I don't know what you tell your students.
I tell them exactly the same thing. It's certainly, as Jared said, it's an investment in your future, and certainly more prestigious, more selective schools tend to be really affordable despite the sticker cost. But at the end of the day, it's Marjorie, like what you mentioned, it should be a good academic fit. It needs to be a good financial aid fit, right? Because what students don't realize is, what does it mean to pay off, let's say, $100,000 per month until the loan is paid off over potentially 10 years or more, right? That can be $1,000 a month that you're paying, that you have to contribute towards your student loans, but you also have to factor in housing costs, transportation costs, food costs, any other expenses that you have in your life, right? And that can be really crippling, and that can be really discouraging, right? When you're a young adult and you're trying to get your life started, right? And you're kind of feeling like you're crippled in debt because of college. There can be better options, and there likely are better financial aid options, because if you have to graduate, from a school that's going to fully fund you, I would always say do that, right? And then do really, really well while you're there, so that if you want to go on to graduate school, you can be competitive to do that, right? If you need to make slightly different decisions, you can do that, but you're not doing it from a perspective of, you're just in hundreds and thousands of dollars worth of debt, which realistically for me, ultimately every student has to make their decisions, but that feels really, I can't justify that in good faith to a student to take out that much loans.
But I
And
will
I
say,
agree with Marjorie too, Marjorie, about your researching, because every colleges we have on our website, families making under $60,000 a year, the student will have no debt. Between 60 and 100,000, total max for 4 years is $9,000 for the student. Those things are posted. The amount of financial aid average awards to students. So take a look at that, and you may be surprised, and maybe you won't be, but do your research on those. Make a little spreadsheet. I know we all talking about organizing, but make a spreadsheet, list the schools, and put down the debt that students leave with. What's the graduation rate? And that's something if you're not sure of, you've got wonderful counselors to help you do that kind of work and explain things to you. So, be brave and ask those questions, because you're the only one that matters in this process.
and if you don't have a counselor, know that the colleges, the admissions office, financial aid people are really there to help you. I see the time that it's 12:17 and we're 2 minutes over, but please make sure that you use the colleges as a resource. They really want to help students and answer questions. So if you don't have a college counselor that's available to you, know that there is someone at the college that may be able to advise you. So make sure you use your resources. And please do not take schools off your list automatically if you think, oh, I can't afford that school. Talk to them, do the research, do the calculator, because there might be merit scholarship that you may not know about. So don't take a school automatically off your list because of the sticker price. Do your homework, and at the end of the day, look at your financial aid applications in front of you, and then make that decision if this is really the place that I need to be. So we are over time, and I want to leave the panelists to say their last words very quickly before we let the facilitator of Strive Scan go to do the college fair. Is there any closing remarks?
I would just say each institution is different, and each institution does things differently. So definitely ask questions.
Ask questions. Just want to second that.
Just dive into this process and don't delay. It's time sensitive.
And don't think that you're anything but awesome. All right.
You are awesome.
It's been a tough year. You've gone through you've learned to pivot and be flexible and adaptable. So those are positive life skills. It may not have felt that way in these pandemic years, but you really are awesome.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being on this panel, and we're going to wish you all a good afternoon. Bye-bye now.